Beau, welcome to the show, man. It's great to visit with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, buddy. My pleasure. So how's the weather in Pennsylvania this time of year?
Well, it can go a lot of different ways, but actually right now it's like a high of 85 today, sunny,
Oh,
which
nice.
typically in PA in May you can either get snow or you can get nice weather, rain. It's kind of all over the board. So,
Yeah.
but pretty hot and humid, I'd say. How about
Okay.
down in Texas?
Yeah, we're about to get into that part of the year where it's like a string of like if it doesn't hit 95, then it doesn't really feel like summer. Uh, by late July and August, it'll be like 100 degrees every other day. We had one
Ah,
summer where we had like 40 days in a row where it hit triple digits. It was sweltering. So
yeah, that's insane. I don't do well with the extreme heat there.
yeah,
Luckily, we don't get a lot of that, but we do get a lot of cold weather here too. That's for sure.
yeah. I've been to Pennsylvania one time. I was a kid. We had a soccer tournament in Hershey,
Okay.
and that's the only time I've actually been to Pennsylvania. I think I was probably like in ninth or 10th grade. And then I passed through the Philadelphia airport one time. It was a Sunday during the NFL season, and the Cowboys were playing the Eagles. I think I was coming back from Canada. I was hunting something up there, and flew through Philly. So of course I was wearing a Troy Aikman Cowboys jersey because you hear that Philly fans are the worst of the worst, like horrible people. And they
Yeah.
threw batteries at Michael Irvin when he hurt his neck. And so I was just gonna see like if it, yeah, the airport's probably not a great representation because there's people from
No,
everywhere.
and Philly too. That's not a great representation. I mean, that part of the state, I don't spend a whole lot of time there, and kind of consider it a different part. Yeah, the whole like there's a lot of people from southeastern Pennsylvania, but like I don't know, I don't spend a whole lot of time there, so it's kind of from when I do spend time there, it seems like almost two different states a little bit
Yeah,
compared to where I'm at, kind of in the middle of nowhere here.
I wasn't disappointed. I got a lot of nasty looks and stares though, so I was like, oh yeah, I get it. But but Pennsylvania does have a very robust hunting heritage. Texas is always number one in licenses sold, but we have like 30 million people, and I think Pennsylvania. I was looking at the stats, and you guys have like 13 million people, and you're not
Mhm.
that far behind us in licenses sold. So by like percentage of population, you guys are, I think, number one maybe. Wisconsin sells a lot of licenses too, but you're always in the top five in licenses sold. So you guys have to have a really great hunting tradition and culture there.
Yeah, no, I think I want to say it was somewhere around 750,000 licenses sold last year. I could be wrong with that number, but it was ahead of, of Wisconsin and Michigan and stuff
Mm.
like, and yeah, Texas has the most amount of people and stuff there, but deer hunters per square mile is the highest in Pennsylvania as everywhere. And the hunting heritage is very strong. I mean, hunting camps, which I love that aspect of it, is strong. Like my family during hunting season, you can find everybody taking vacation at work, being at our hunting camp and spending time there. It's just the deer hunting side of things in Pennsylvania is very, very strong.
So what is a describe a traditional Pennsylvania deer hunting camp?
Okay, so
I want to
uh,
see what it's like compared to Texas.
So basically, you think of like a one or two room kind of cabin looking thing, in the middle of the woods, typically near a lot of public land, because people will come up like from the cities and they go away to their hunting camp and to
Uh,
spend time, usually during the rifle seasons, but also during archery season as well. And it's just basically a bunch of family and friends that get together. They may have some bunk beds and stuff in there. Usually maybe some running water, maybe not. Normally electricity, a place where people like to get together, drink some beer, tell a bunch of stories, and yeah, and basically that's about it.
so
How does
you,
how does Texas look like?
oh yeah, I'll tell you just a second, but I'm trying to wrap my mind around. So you own the little place where the cabin is, that's private land, and then you're hunting public land.
Mostly, yeah, and they also have like some state, like there's some state-owned leases that they'll have, so it could be on a state forest, but they'll lease the cabin essentially. So yeah, you basically pay a fee to be able to have your cabin on this land, like they've been grandfathered in for a ton of years. I don't know the exact way how all the contracts work,
Huh.
but like the one that we personally have is on private land, and it's just within driving distance of some public lands that we can go hunt, or and also can hunt the private lands if you have permission as well.
And do you guys use trail cameras out there on the public land?
Yeah, yeah, we use a lot of, well, I can't speak for everybody, but my family in particular, we use a lot of trail cameras. So
Uh-huh.
it's,
Okay.
yeah, we use a lot of trail cameras, and like, so yeah, everybody's deer camp's a little bit different. I'd say traditionally most people go up, like we have like the opening weekend of rifle season after Thanksgiving, where it's like a holiday where everybody comes up and they shoot their guns in, they sight their guns in, cook a lot of food, hang out and everything, get ready for opening day. Some may stay the first week, some may just stay the first couple days and go home. That's kind of the traditional option. The way we've done it is we focus a lot on the archery season, so that's when we take most of our vacation. We'll go up at night, hang out, talk about how the day went in the woods, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure the vibe is very similar to Texas as far as the camaraderie and the beer and the
Yeah,
campfires and everything, and just the spirit of being in the outdoors and pursuing what we love, whitetail deer. Um, but most of ours is on private land. Like I don't think like the state lease cabin thing. There's none of that going on here. You typically, if you're lucky, you have an old house. For the average Texas deer hunter, if you don't own your own land, like if you own your own land, then wow, what a luxury. Um, but maybe a couple campers if there's no house on there. But it's all private, and I'd say you're hunting most people probably 200 to 1,000 acres, something like that,
okay.
and you're paying uh between $3,000 and $5,000 per hunter per season, so it's not cheap.
No,
um
that's definitely, yeah,
and the
it's a little
farther
bit
south you
different.
go, the bigger the bucks get, like the more you're gonna pay.
Yeah, the more expensive it gets.
Yeah.
I know with ours too, like the deer hunting camps are, I'd say they're dying a little bit. One, because okay, so you have to, the camps are becoming more expensive, well, as everything is, but like, so
Mm.
to be able to buy one, traditionally you have to get multiple families involved and they all go in on it. Well, then one person's working harder than the other, taking care of it,
Oh yeah.
cutting the grass and doing the repairs or paying for things. And I've seen that kind of die a little bit more, which is, I've seen it kind of expand a little bit with like Airbnbs and stuff that are out in the middle of nowhere, like these camps that people, I mean, it makes sense. You don't have to do all this work all year and have everything built into it. You can go up and just kind of rent something out for a week and
Hmm.
not have all the, I guess, all the headaches with it. But it is kind of sad seeing that die is, and I remember growing up just as a kid, like it was just every camp. I mean, there'd be hundreds and, well, there's thousands of camps in the areas that I live in. I live in the area, like when I tell people like where I live, everyone's like, "Oh, I have a camp there." Not too many people actually live here, but most people
Yeah.
have a camp and they come up and it's just, you go through deer season and there's just lights on every camp and deer hanging out on the poles outside. So that's kind of the vibe of it.
That's kind of what I envision is the deer pole, like deer hanging on poles,
Yeah,
uh, and you look at those old timey photos where the hunters don't even have on camo; they're wearing like red and black plaid. Like
yeah.
um, kind of makes you wonder about. I mean, I love the stuff we have today, but is it really necessary? I don't know. Somehow they killed deer back then. Now they
Yeah.
probably weren't as warm as we are, right? But
No.
uh,
It is funny looking back, and like we have some of those old pictures on our camp wall of like my grandpa and like all his brothers and stuff when they'd come up there and they got their orange jumpsuits on and during rifle season, or just the plaid and blue
mhm.
jeans and everything. And that's one thing that they said is I've given them some newer gear and some of the better gear and stuff out there. Like, man, this stuff is nice. So
Yeah,
I don't know if they would agree with going back to that trend or not.
blue jeans. Those are not warm at all. I see all those guys hunting in blue jeans in the middle of the winter. I'm like, "Huh, it's terrible. I'm not jealous of that.
No.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, Texas is we have a great deer specifically whitetail hunting culture here as well. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. But the question I get the most is how do we find a lease? Especially because people are moving to Texas in droves and they're clueless when they get here. Like, we had all this public land where I'm from. What do I do now? Well, there's no public land here to speak of, really. A few places, WMAs, where you can bow hunt, or a couple national forests and such. But by and large, it's a private hunting whitetail culture, and that's kind of sad. But that is where we're at. And I've hunted the swankiest high fence ranches to South Texas ranches to I had a deer lease just across the border in Oklahoma where we had a camper, no water, no electricity. It was so bad, like you just hear the mice running across the floor when you're trying to sleep. My wife never went to that camp, not one time. So I've seen the high of the highs and the lows of the lows as far as hunting camps are concerned.
Yeah. Yeah, Texas fascinates me. It's like I've never hunted there before, but like it seems like there's a strong hunting culture there. It just looks different than like where we're at, just based off of the land
Yeah,
and not having the same opportunities of the public land versus the private. But depends on where you live at, how you just got to adapt to it and what you want to do with it, I guess.
but you'll still see the same thing, family, friends, and the spirit of the hunt.
Yeah.
That's really what, and it's as much about just getting away for a lot of people as it is actually killing a deer. That's just gravy. Um, what about turkey hunting in Pennsylvania?
So turkey hunting also has a pretty strong tradition here, but it seems that at least in like, so the area, just to give you like a picture, like the area that I live in is there's no farm fields or anything. It's just big timber,
Mm-hmm.
Appalachian mountain type. Some of it's really steep and rugged. Other parts are just more rolling, but big woods style things. And the turkey population over the last 10 years has really declined a lot. It's a struggle to find turkeys for the most part. I remember when I was a kid, I would get two tags because you can get two tags in Pennsylvania and be able to fill them like no problem. There was just turkeys everywhere. And then as I've grown up, like I don't even buy a second tag. And if I do, I don't even plan on filling it. It's just there's just not there's not
Oh,
that many turkeys out there. And I spend a lot of time in the woods scouting for deer, and I rarely get turkeys on my trail cameras, being able to find them. I mean, they're there. It's just not as prevalent as they used to be. That's for sure.
so why do you think that is? And I had on Cameron Weddington a couple of weeks ago, who wrote this article in Outdoor Life about reaping, and he's basically blaming the practice of reaping for a decline in turkey populations. I don't buy that, and I don't believe that you should tell people how they can or can't hunt. It's an interesting opinion. It's his opinion, not one I subscribe to. Do you think that is why you've seen a decline in turkey populations in your home state?
No, because one it's illegal. So it's
Oh,
illegal in Pennsylvania. So that makes that answer pretty easy.
well, then that does make sense because if everyone's hunting on public land, like I do,
Yeah.
the only thing that he brought to the table that I was like, okay, maybe that is valid. Certainly not going to tell people what to do on private land, but if people are getting shot because they're all hunting public land and you're crawling up on each other with turkey fans, I get it.
Yeah, I don't I wouldn't, even if it was legal, personally do it, not because of the ethics behind it, more so just from the safety side of it. That'd be
Mm,
my personal decision in Pennsylvania not to do that.
yeah.
I've known of people getting shot. I've just in general, I mean, you're not even allowed like crawling up on a turkey in Pennsylvania. Like it's pretty vague how it's written, but you basically have to call them into you, like you can move into a certain position and then have to call them into you. You can't be moving on them.
Uh-huh.
So it's I I I I don't think it has really anything to do with like over hunting or anything in Pennsylvania. I do know there's parts of PA and some of the farm country where the turkey populations are still thriving. I'm just speaking mostly from what I know, and the predators have definitely. I mean, that's an easy one. I don't know the actual numbers behind it and if that's actually legit, but there's so many more fishers now, coyotes, all these different predators, I guess, that are in the woods, then that weren't
Well,
here
there's
in
no
the
fur market
numbers.
anymore, right?
No, there's nobody
Oh,
trapping. There's
yeah.
not any of that. I mean, I never saw fishers before. I see them out of the tree now. They're on almost all my trail cameras. They're everywhere. And so I think that the predation has a little bit to do with it. That's for sure. Especially just, and even in the raccoons and stuff, being able to get their eggs, all
Yeah.
of that, I think has a play in it. But I haven't done enough research on it to really give like a strong opinion one way or another why
Right.
that's the situation.
Well, as a nation, our agricultural practices have certainly changed, and that lends to an increased number of, here's a buffet of corn. Okay, yeah, you're gonna have more raccoons. You know,
Yeah.
so I think, and then they're one of the biggest nest predators on turkeys. So that certainly plays into it. And the lack of people used to tell me they could get $25 for a coonskin cap or pelt, tanned pelt, 30 years ago. What it's not, you're losing money by the time you flesh it
Yeah.
out and tan it now. It's like, oh, here's your $5. Well, that wasn't worth my time. Can't make a
No.
living doing that. So yeah, it's definitely changed, and ground nesting species are the big losers for sure. Is CWD a big thing back home?
Not in my area. In parts of Pennsylvania, it's getting a lot of attention, but not in the area where I'm at. So, and also in the area where I'm at is where the Pennsylvania elk herd is. So that's a big scare. Like it's a lot of talk about CWD getting into the elk herd, wiping that out, and having all these things with it. But it hasn't been a strong, I guess, talking point in a lot of these areas. But in Pennsylvania, as in totality, it has CWD has been
Mm.
affecting some of the deer herds. Not like some of the areas like Wisconsin or anything that where you see more about it, but not as much in Pennsylvania.
It's kind of similar to here. Um, we have a few cases every once in a while, and sometimes they're on a high fence ranch, and then Texas Parks and Wildlife wants to come in and eradicate the whole herd on that ranch and do surveillance within 10-mile radius, and that's fine. It sucks for the landowner. I understand it, but mostly in Texas, it's big scare tactic. Like, and I know it exists. I'm not decrying that CWD is not a thing, that it can't negatively affect a deer herd, but we haven't seen it here. That's for sure. Not like a lot of the Midwest has.
Yeah,
Um,
they did find like a case in a high fence place close to here, and so then they went and they took like the national forest, and they don't allow baiting in the off season anymore. So you're never allowed baiting as far as like putting food out during season, but you're allowed to outside of hunting season within 30 or outside of 30 days of it. You could put out minerals, you could put out corn, whatever. And now they shut that down for 1 year. That just started this year
hmm.
because of the scare with it. And so I don't necessarily understand how that would help the situation. But yeah, that's one of the things that they've done recently for CWD specifically.
Hmm. Talk more about that elk herd, because I've read articles and stuff about the success from that. I guess reintroduction of elk in Pennsylvania, where they're native to.
Yeah. So the elk herd in Pennsylvania has grown a lot and is very strong, and they've kept it in a pretty like they kept it in one area basically, and I'm not sure exactly how they're doing that, but they've kept them kind of in these mountainous regions, some of the steep country, and it's thriving. I mean, like the epicenter is a little town called Benazet, and if you go there really at any time of the year, there's elk everywhere in people's yards, and they
Oh
almost
wow.
look tame. They almost look tamed, like as far as around that main town. Once you get out into the state forest and stuff, they act a little bit more wild. But it's doing really well. I actually had the head elk biologist on my podcast a couple years ago talking about it, and it's good. I mean, they're opening up hunting opportunities. They've been doing that for the last, I think it's almost 20 years now that they've had
Hmm.
tags, but it just keeps increasing. They've opened up more seasons. They opened up an archery season a few years ago, a late season, like January hunt, in addition to their week-long rifle hunt. So it's very healthy. It's known for having some of the biggest bulls in the world that are here. I mean, if you draw a tag, there's a good chance you can shoot a bull over 400 inches. No matter if you go with an outfitter or if you don't, there's a lot of big bulls. When I get them on my trail cameras, it's phenomenal.
Have you ever
to
gotten
see
a
that.
tag?
I have not. No, I've been putting in since the beginning and building points, and I have not drawn a tag
So
yet.
as a resident, like how many points do you need to be like, okay, I have a good shot?
It's real. So the way they do it is like a bonus point system. So they square it. So say you have 2 points, you get four chances thrown in the bucket. And I believe I have like 14 points, which the maximum is maybe 19 or 20, something like that. My dad has a maximum and he hasn't drawn yet. And there's people that their first time they'll draw. So it's not, the odds aren't very good for it. And I only put in for bull tags. So that could also, if you put in for a cow tag, you have a little bit better chance of being able to get that tag. But
oh no, Beau just told us he's a trophy hunter.
Yeah,
that's me too.
No, yeah, and the thing is, it's like if I'm gonna spend all this time doing it, I go out west and I hunt out there. If I want to get meat, I can do that, and I hunt deer tags. If I want to get meat, I can shoot does. Like I'm not too concerned about that. So if I want to shoot a bull, I want to shoot a big bull in Pennsylvania, and that's
100%, dude.
That's just the way I feel about it.
So my elk hunting buddy and I, who we host another podcast, is a little more of like a political exploration, but he doesn't care. He's like, I'm shooting the first legal thing that walks out, and I'm like, dude, we are packed in 7 miles and it's day one of a 7-day hunt, and you want to shoot a cow elk and then have me waste 2 days of my hunt packing it out 14 miles round trip. I was like, just chill on the cow shooting. And he has his own ranch in South Texas. I mean, he could shoot does until he's blue in the face. It's like, God.
Yeah.
I think he's just more trigger happy than anything. He just wants to put an arrow in something. I'm like,
yeah,
no, I'm not interested in that 7 mile. I've got a freezer full of all kinds of wild game. Fortunate and blessed, I'm thankful every day for that. But no, I'm not packing out a cow elk 7 miles. Sorry.
No, I go, like, for me, it's very situational. Like there's places where I'm like, I'm only shooting a big deer or, elk or something. And there's other hunts where I'm like, okay, any legal one, this is what I'm going to be happy with. But usually when it comes to like a cow elk or a doe or something, I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible for those situations. Yeah, that's just me personally, the way I look at it. But every hunt's a little bit different. Like in Pennsylvania, when I'm hunting deer, like this is my home state, I spend the most time in it. I'm usually waiting for a bigger deer. And then when I went to New York last year, it was like first legal buck that I see, I'm shooting it, and that's what I did, and I'm just as happy with it. Just
right.
It does. I don't have like a one set stone for whatever I do, I guess.
Oh, sure. I made myself sound like a total snob. I'll shoot the first 5x5 that walks in. By like day 3 or 4, I'll shoot a 3x4. I don't know if I'm going to shoot a spike, but maybe. Not if I'm 7 miles in. But like you said, it's situational. If it's a place where you could get an ATV or a truck to the animal, by all means, I would shoot a cow elk, but sometimes you and I, it sounds like, and we'll talk more about this in the next segment, but it sounds like we do a lot of traveling out west, which also changes the game on getting that meat back home. And there's logistics that go into that. So let's do this. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back, and I want to talk about your podcast, among other things. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. We'll work in a commercial break there. Okay. Well, Beau, thanks for sticking around, man. Certainly enjoying the conversation.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's been good so far.
So we got to also thank Go Wild for sponsoring this interview and getting us connected. You and I were talking off the air about just like the last couple months. It seems like there's been a just total almost lockdown on hunting content. I mean, I've seen my stuff go down like 70% in the amount of likes and engagement. which tells me that people that usually see it just aren't seeing it.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that so much across my social media platforms. Like it's been crazy. And at first I attributed it to like just being outside of hunting season and people not paying attention to as much. But social media doesn't really work that way. YouTube's a little bit different, but like, you know, your Instagram and Facebook and stuff, it's just my engagement went way, way down compared to where it was. And that's why, yeah, I like platforms like Go Wild, that don't have that censorship, don't have any of that. That's
Yeah.
why I signed up for it 4 or 5 years ago or whatever. And just being able to have conversations with people, and it's not based off this crazy algorithm. And I mentioned the word gun, and all of a sudden everything's thrown off, and you know, for the next 3 weeks, nobody sees my stuff. So
Yeah.
that's
No, it's been awesome to see how much Go Wild has grown in the what have they been around 5 years now, something like that. Brad's I think we first started talking probably 5 years ago, and how they've been able to build it and then add the online store. And um I I wanted to believe in it. I was a little skeptical because you never know how those outside platforms are going to do. But Go Wild is the only one that I've seen that's actually been successful. There's been others that have tried and failed. So they have whatever the formula is, whatever the secret is, they're doing a great job.
Yeah, no, they are. And I think Brad just has like a really good mindset, and he's very driven on the fact that he hates social media. So he created a social media platform. And
Right.
so like
Yeah.
I
Last time
think
I talked
that,
to him, he was like, I deleted my Facebook and I very rarely get on Instagram. I was like,
yeah.
yep.
Yeah, I was just talking to him the other day, and we were laughing about that a little bit. But like how when he gets fired up about something, he kind of creates that solution to it, or and what, you know, he's actually doing something about it, and
Uh-huh.
within Go Wild. And I think that's really cool to be able to
Yeah.
have that.
So if you guys are not on Go Wild, it's basically a free social media app where you're not going to find censorship or anti-hunting people jumping on there to beat you up like you'll see all across every other platform. So yeah, actually I just had a guy on Facebook today say hunting, he posted a meme that he made and it was like hunting a little insignificant man's way to make himself feel big. They won't see that stuff on there.
No, not
Um,
no. I haven't yet.
so you talked about the amount you guys hunt a lot of public land. What is BHA's place in Pennsylvania, or do they have one? Because they don't have one here in Texas.
Yeah, they do. They have a pretty strong presence, I would say, in
Mhm.
Pennsylvania. And yeah, they have a pretty strong presence. And they've done quite a bit for public land opportunities, and also working with some of the other organizations and opening up some habitat for the elk and deer, and strong advocates for Sunday hunting, which Pennsylvania does not have in yeah, Pennsylvania doesn't have Sunday hunting, besides the fact that
Still,
they've opened up 3 days now. We're allowed 3 days of Sundays. The
so you
last
guys go
Sunday,
deer hunting for a weekend, and the hunt
yeah,
starts Friday and ends Saturday.
yeah, yeah, it's terrible. And yeah, exactly. And so they've been very strong advocates of that. I'd say the local chapter in Pennsylvania has been very strong with helping with from a Pennsylvania standpoint. I can't speak on other aspects, but as far as that, they've done well with it.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because they do some grandstanding in Texas, and they made a big stink about CWD here, and it didn't go well. So I was curious from a place that is mostly public land, like where you hunt, what they're up to there. So
Yeah.
that's good at least. Um, we we're a lot alike, I think, in the fact that we live in states with incredible hunting tradition, but we still travel west every year to pursue other species. And I think that's kind of like the origin of East Meets West Hunt podcast. So talk a little bit about what you do, and why you started this podcast.
Yeah, so I started going out west in 2016, and I had really, it was because I read a book. Cameron Haynes wrote a backcountry bow hunting, and I was like, man, this sounds really cool. And the fact that I just thought that you had to have a lot of money and all these things to be able to go out west. I just watched the stuff on TV, and no one in my family ever did it. We were, big hunters, but never went out west. And I was like, I'm going to start researching this. And that was right when podcasts were really starting to get bigger, with other hunting podcasts out there, and helped me a lot with being able to figure it out. But I felt like there was like this gap in the logistics and the planning side and everything for someone coming from the East or the Midwest, or anywhere else other than the West, to be able to go there. So after I started planning these hunts and going on them on my own. I realized it wasn't that difficult to plan the trip. The hunting, that's a different story, but the actual planning aspect wasn't as difficult. And I wanted just to continue to learn more, specifically about elk at the beginning. And I wanted to talk to people that were highly successful at it, as I was new to it. So I didn't have that ability. And I was working in an archery shop at the time, part-time, and got to know some different people in the industry that had a lot of knowledge with Western hunting and everything. And anyways, I decided that I wanted to start a podcast to be able to help people be able to plan these Western hunts and plan adventure hunts, and do that by me selfishly getting to talk to some of the best people in the world at it and learn from myself, but also be able to help others in that endeavor. And it really, I'll back up for 1 second. Like, it started with, I wrote an article. I wasn't a writer at the time at all. I just wrote an article for myself on my first elk hunt. And my brother came up with the name East Meets West. I titled it and I submitted it to an online journal, the Journal of Mountain Hunting, which is a Canadian publication. And they ran it as a subscriber story. And when I shared it on my Facebook and Instagram, I had a bunch of people that were like, oh, that's really cool. I wish I had the time. I wish I had the money to be able to do that. I'm like, well, it's really not that hard if you plan for these things, whether it's the budgeting aspect, whether it's the time off, or how you can make that happen. So that's kind of where the idea stemmed from. And then it just kind of grew from there. And I started, interviewing these people, helping from the basics standpoint. And then as I grew with doing more Western hunts, that kind of evolved a little bit more. And in addition to that, the podcast, I didn't have this in the plan at first, but when I started talking about the big woods whitetail hunting that I've grown up doing, and that's kind of like my bread and butter, what I've known doing and my family's done forever, that was huge, because there was no other media out there at the time that was focused on anything other than farm country or different things like that. And the whole Appalachian range, there's 5.5 million hunters that go through that strain, and there just wasn't information out there. So I think that was something that really related to people, and I like talking about, because it's kind of mixes a little bit of like that adventure Western hunting with the whitetail side of it when you're going in. So that's kind of where the basis of the podcast came from.
And so, is elk still your favorite thing to pursue out west?
Yeah, I'd say it is. Mule deer is new to me yet, but that I have a feeling that's gonna climb up there quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took me 4 years to kill an elk. So it took 4 years out there before I killed one with my bow. It was a struggle. It was like 30 some days total by the time I finally got it done. And then my 4th year, the first day of a 14-day trip, I ended up killing an elk. So that was
Awesome.
that felt good. You're talking about earlier with like the spike and then 5x5 and stuff. Well, I had a spike coming out, following some cows, and a 5x5 right behind it. And this was the first time I took a videographer on a hunt with me, and he was behind me, and he's like, "Man, I thought you were going to shoot that spike. You were like, had the body language." I was thinking about it. He's like, "But the 5x5 was right behind it." I said, "I know." And I did wait, but I was highly considering it after going that many years without, being able to kill something. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I missed, I think, my first elk hunt. We're kind of on the same timeline. I did a solo trip to New Mexico. My buddy backed out like the last minute. And so I was like, well, I'm still going. My wife's like, you really want to go in the backcountry by yourself? I was like, it's happening. So you wrap your mind or your mind around it however you need to. rationalize that. I'll take a satellite phone. I'll tell you every day that I'm still alive. But other than that, see you later. And yeah, I called in an elk on that first hunt somehow. Just dumb luck, I guess, and missed him. And then the next year ended up shooting a 5x5. I think that was probably the highlight of my hunting career. I've killed 3 now, 2 in New Mexico and 1 in Colorado. And then I was like 3 out of 4. So I missed. Then I had 3 successful seasons in a row. And then I've hit rock bottom. I've either wounded or missed like 3 years in a row or something. So I got to get back on the straight and narrow. And
yeah.
and then last year I shot a 6x6, just like 3 inches high. And I ranged the tree where I thought he was going to walk in front of. And I've told this story on the air before, but you haven't heard it. And so I've ranged it 40 yards. There's the tree. Here he comes. Buddy's calling for me. And I mean, he's broadside and I just smoke him. And you could see the arrow 3/4 just buried in him. And he's like, dude, you nailed him. And I was like, yeah, but when he turned and ran, I was like, that arrow was just a little bit higher than I wanted. And long story short, when you could see his tracks in the dirt where he turned and whirled, and it was 32 yards away. So he was in front of the tree. And I shot him with a 40-yard pin at 32 yards. And we found a little blood here and there. And he, those things are so tough. I'm sure it annoyed him, but he didn't die. And
yeah,
I think we found that same elk the next day, just on the next ridge over with a bunch of cows. Couldn't confirm, but the way that he ghosted us once he heard our calling, I think it was him.
yeah, they're so tough. Like I kind of joke about it where if I got shot somewhere like that, I'd be laying flat down on the ground where somehow they're just them and deer, they're tough animals. And like the first 3 hunts that I had opportunities on every one of those hunts. I just screwed up. Like it was just rookie mistakes of being in bow range, not taking a shot when I should have, or not drawing at the right time. Just stupid things like that just constantly plagued me with it. And it definitely brings you back down to earth real quick. And,
yeah.
that's why I love Western hunting. It's hard, it's fun, but it's fun at the same time. Like when you're out there, I think like most of the time you're like, this sucks. And then like you're driving back and you're like, can't wait to go out again. And
well, I am envious of the people that, the guys that live out west, because they can hit a trailhead and be an elk in an afternoon hunt and then go back and sleep in their own bed. For us, it sounds like you're willing to invest 2 weeks. I usually go about 7 to 10 days and that's it. Like I do 1 elk hunt a year. So to try to make it happen in a 7-day hunt, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But we also have this great whitetail hunting that most of them don't have. So it's I like my sandbox, but I like to go play in theirs every year.
Yeah.
Some of them don't like that we do. And like New Mexico right now is trying to pass legislation to make bighorn sheep a resident only tag. Like, I own that. That's federal land. That land is in New Mexico, but it isn't theirs. It's yours and mine.
Yep.
So don't tell me that I can't come there and hunt bighorn sheep. And am I ever going to draw that tag? Probably not, because it's straight lottery, but I still put in every year. I kind of throw up a little when I give them the $3,000 when I apply. But luckily you get it back minus the application process fee. Which I think is like
that hurts because they hold on to it for a little while. They don't just like you have to pay your credit card statement before they give it back to you. So you got to be prepared for it a little bit. And that's Wyoming just did that where I don't remember the exact details of it, but I want to say they like dropped down their non-resident allocations by quite a bit. And it really hurt people that had been putting in for years. I know a buddy of mine had been putting in for, I don't know, he had like 18 points for sheep and stuff. And he's like, I'll never draw it now based off of how far they cut back that tag application or allocation. So it's they don't love us coming out there. That's for sure. And I do
weird because if you look at the financial impact, like I was looking before we did this interview, I was researching Pennsylvania hunting licenses, Texas hunting licenses, and you can see the states that have the most gross revenue generated from hunting. And Texas was like $46 million in 2020. And this is just from license sales. Okay. This isn't from like hotels and restaurants and hunting equipment and that kind of stuff. Straight licenses. Texas was, I think, number 2 after Colorado. Well, Texas was 36 million from resident hunting license and like $12 million impact from non-res. Colorado's completely flipped. It was like 12 million from resident hunting tags, and then it was like almost 40 million from non-res. So they can tell us, the hunters, like how much they don't want us out there, but at the end of the day, their state wildlife agencies, and Wyoming was the same way, Montana, it's like 70-30. So they depend on us. Their state agencies need us. That's $40 million is a lot of money.
Yeah, it's hard to get past sometimes people's personal impacts to them, or if they show up to a trailhead and there's more people there than was there in the past, it's automatic. Non-residents, they suck. They're the reasons for this. This is why I didn't kill an elk this year. That sort of deal. I mean, I get that from having this podcast. I get some negative feedback from the Western guys as far as what about making it easier for people to have information on how to obtain tags and plan and stuff, which is difficult sometimes.
Yeah. Let's see what else. I'll edit this out. Oh yeah, so I finally built enough points in Wyoming. I think I had 5 this year, and so that's where I'm headed for the first time for elk. I've hunted New Mexico, been lucky to draw there like 3 or 4 times. Hunted Colorado over the counter, and then have done Montana, but I've never hunted Wyoming for elk. Have you?
No, I haven't. I was just gonna say that's a state that's on my list. I've been building points in too. I haven't actually applied there yet. I've been just building points. I apply for New Mexico every year and I have not drawn at all. But I've been kind of shooting for the sky a little bit with some of the units and stuff that I've been trying to
for
draw.
The Gila.
Yeah, I'm putting in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm putting in for the Gila, and
always because why are they talking about the Gila on the show? Well, the cat's out of the bag, it's like everyone knows about.
Yeah, it's like 0.2% chance of drawing. Like, yeah, everybody knows that. But and I've always had like other opportunities that I knew that I could basically draw or plan on hunting over the counter. Like I've hunted Colorado 3 or 4 times now. I've hunted Idaho once. And this year I drew Montana, their general tag. I thought I was going to draw a special unit tag that I've been waiting for, and according to all the draw odds places, I had 100% chance of drawing it. And me and 3 of my buddies put in all separate. We didn't put in as a group because we wanted to have the best odds of being able to draw, and none of us drew it. So, really? But we did get the general tag though. So that's positive. It'll be fun to get to hunt a different state in Montana. Idaho with their changes they made a couple years ago. That really hurt because I only got to hunt that 1 year, and that's where I killed my bull at, and wanted to continue to go back to that area, but it's I haven't been able to pick up a tag since.
Yeah. Idaho had a bunch of leftover like over the counter tags at one point, but a buddy that lives there told me that once COVID hit, those things sold out. Like you used to be able to pick them up as the season was going. Like if you just wanted an extra one, he was like, they sold out the first day, because more people wanted to kill their own or felt like number one, they had more time on their hands. Number 2, it's like, I guess we better get back to this hunting thing that we used to do. That for life got in the way, and we kind of just put it to the side. But yeah, we've seen definitely an influx of hunters from COVID. I don't know if that's good or bad. I used to always be, the more hunters, the merrier. We are strength in numbers, but I think some of the messaging out there is recruiting the wrong kind of hunters, and it's kind of opened my eyes up to, if you're still voting this way, you're a hunter, but the Second Amendment is absolute. Like there's no gray area for me. So I don't know if you talk about politics on your podcast, but I certainly wade into that, and I don't care. Like
Yeah.
Don't tell me that I'm a hunter, but you shouldn't shoot a wolf, or you shouldn't go to Africa and shoot an elephant. I don't want to hear that. You're not, if that's the hunter that we're recruiting, then in my opinion, I'd rather just not have them, because that's just going to fray the fabric of who we are and what we do.
Yeah, it's definitely made me reconsider a lot of that same things, as far as the more hunters, the better. And then even some that I've met along the way now, that's like, okay, this could be counterintuitive, and
Yeah.
being able to help us out as a whole. And then as we start arguing within ourselves on specific topics, or whether this is good or this isn't, it's I think we're spiraling down when it comes to that aspect. And no, I traditionally, I don't talk about politics a whole lot on my podcast. I know you're very vocal about it, and I respect you for being able to for doing that, I guess. But it's yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the whole hunter recruitment process, and
Yeah.
how that affects hunting as a whole, and where that's going to take it in the future, I guess.
It is a weird thing. We'll see how the future unfolds. I wanted to talk just a couple other questions about Pennsylvania and your whitetail hunting culture. Mostly tree stands, I assume,
Yeah, it's
in the
mostly
hardwoods.
tree stands, or I hunt out of a saddle, which
Yeah.
same type of hunting. And then and there's also a lot of like ground hunting, kind of still hunting style. So basically walking through the woods slowly and peeking over ridges and doing that, or sitting on the ground, but mostly tree stand style.
Do you guys do deer drives?
Oh yeah, that's
Okay.
deer drives are a big part of the whole rifle season culture. Whether that's for deer, for bear, whatever. So like, I believe the maximum party size with the party size is the group that can put on deer drives. You have to have a roster and everyone sign on. I think it's like 20 people.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so it's pretty significant size. And the reason for like a lot of it is with everything's so thick, and we have a lot of very good forest management with logging and cutting and doing all of that. So it gets thick, and that's how they use it to push deer and bear and stuff out of some of those thick areas. Which the deer are getting smarter though, as they do that, they'll literally lay flat unless you almost step on them sometimes to get them to run out. But if we didn't do deer drives, or drives in general for bears, I don't know how anybody would really kill black bears, because there's no baiting, there's no hunting with dogs. It's for
Well, you
black
just took
bears.
out the two best methods of
I know.
managing black bear populations.
That's what I'm saying. So it's difficult. And so it's funny, because I've been trying to find a guest for my podcast to talk about like just like traditional black bear hunting in Pennsylvania that doesn't utilize driving, like figuring out, and I haven't found anybody that I can even interview yet that does it like consistently. And it's like, for me, I've never killed a black bear in Pennsylvania. We have a ton of them. It's just mostly because my family isn't real big into bear hunting, so we don't have like a big group of drivers or anything to do it. So if I get lucky and see one while I'm deer hunting and the seasons happen to overlap, that would be my only chance of an opportunity. But yeah, deer drives are definitely that's a strong part of the culture here.
So that brings up the next question. And I've, like, being from Texas, our neighbors to the east, Louisiana, we always chide them about, if it's brown, it's down. Like, we have big deer in Texas because we don't shoot the first thing that walks out. Not knocking you if you do. That's your right. And a trophy is certainly in the eye of the beholder, whether that's the meat or the horns. That's open to your own interpretation of what you want. I didn't even shoot a buck this year. I got to the point where there was nothing that interested me on camera, and I just made it all about my son. So
yeah,
I probably passed on 15 legal deer bucks that I'm just like, nah, if it's not a mature deer, I'm just at the point as a hunter where I have no interest. I'll shoot does if I want meat, like, but I don't know if you guys are a brown it's down culture, and this stems from a conversation. I have a buddy who owns a ranch in Texas. He lives here now, but he's from Pennsylvania, and he always goes back every fall to hunt with his sons, like opening weekend. And he said when he lived in Pennsylvania, where he started his career and made his money. The talk around the water cooler was, did you get a buck? I got a buck. How big was your buck? It was like only 4 points, but it was still a buck. Who cares? It's all about filling your buck tag, not necessarily like a deer that I would never shoot, but there it's like all it matters is that it was a buck.
Yeah. So Pennsylvania had a history of the brown is down culture, 100%. They did put antler point restrictions in 2003, and that changed things a lot. And I also think like just even some of the QDMA practices being out there, I think Pennsylvania's changed a lot. I still think there's a lot of hunters that are still kind of under that mentality of just legal buck, or like it's got 8 points, it's an 8-pointer. It doesn't matter the age, it's an 8-pointer. But I think it's gotten so much better. I mean, I can definitely see it. And I attribute a lot of it to the antler point restrictions as well as better forest management. They're doing a really good job with managing the forest, cutting them, giving them a lot of browse, a lot of food, a lot of places for cover, all of those things. And the deer are getting older. The buck my dad shot last year was 8.5 years old. The one I killed 2 years ago was 8.5. The one last year was 5.5. You never saw that before. Like my dad was telling me, and when he won one of the big buck contests in the early 90s, like it was a 100-inch 8-point that was a 2-year-old, and that was an old deer. If they got over a year, a year old, it was a big deer. And that's changed so much. I mean, so we're seeing bigger, we're seeing higher quality deer, we're seeing better body sizes, we're seeing older deer. I think Pennsylvania is in a really good spot for the most part. I've been very happy with that. There's a lot of controversy around. Also, they've increased the doe tags in that period too, which so the buck to doe ratio, it depends on what part of the state, but has gotten a lot better. And I think that helped out a lot too with the quality of the hunt, but the deer numbers are down. So people aren't seeing as many and the forests are thick. So like, I mean, I can go 3 days without seeing a deer, a single deer while sitting in a tree. But that if you sit there for a week during the rut, that you have an opportunity to really good deer, most likely. And for me, I think that's a good. I think the management practices have been pretty good on that aspect. And they're healthier, they're older, and I think Pennsylvania shifted quite a bit.
That's good to hear. And we have a similar. We have antler regulations in Texas. I'd say probably 80% of our counties have a 13-inch minimum inside spread, regardless of points. Doesn't matter. It's a deer 13 inches wide. Okay, well, that's basically, and it's 13 inches on purpose because that's basically the antlers will be outside of his ears. So that's why we have that. And I have had deer that I know are 5.5, 6.5 years old, 8 points, huge. And during the rut, their necks are like, can't even wrap your arms around them. But those deer weren't 13 inches wide, and so they just slipped through the cracks. And there's a lot of people that complain about that. But by and large, I think antler restrictions have been a good thing and made people be more cognizant of, let's try to shoot a mature deer. So.
Yeah. And that's just, I feel like for me too, it's just like where I've gotten to a point as a hunter, as I've, when I first started, up until you're 16, you're allowed to shoot whatever. So you can shoot spikes and stuff when you're younger. And I did, and I'd shot a lot of small bucks. And then it just kind of got to a point where it's like, okay, I just kind of keep challenging myself.
Still shoot spikes all day here, but
okay. Yeah. Oh, well, we can't do that unless it's under 3 inches, I think, then it's considered a doe. But it's so that it's just kind of grown for me, and I just kind of continually just build my own, my own standards for it here. And just knowing trail cameras, everything else, what's out there definitely helps. I think trail cameras have helped a lot of people. Sure. Sometimes give them false hope, and then others with being like, all right, if I put in the time, I put in the work, I have an opportunity to really nice deer. And it's funny because like Pennsylvania doesn't always have the biggest antlers, but if you look at like the age standpoint, it's different. There can be I've shot bucks that are 5, 6 years old that are 120, 125 inches, and that's all the bigger they would be. But they are getting some bigger ones where, like the one my dad shot last year was huge, and it was 170-inch whitetail in Pennsylvania, and we're not seeing a lot of those, but we're seeing more of those 140, 150 inch class deer that
A
you just they
170
weren't
is a
here
hell of a
before.
buck anywhere. I mean,
Oh yeah, it's huge.
any Texas deer hunter would do backflips to have a chance at a 170.
Yeah,
I kind of like think for us, like a 140 free range whitetail deer is like, that's a pretty damn nice trophy.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. That's and really for me in Pennsylvania, it's like that 130 mark is like that's where I was like, if they're at that age, they're a mature buck, or if they're at that size, they're a mature buck, and that's pretty damn good. So that's where I've kind of had my standards, I guess. So
Yeah. Well, so tell us where folks can find you, Beau.
so if you go on my website, eastmeetswesthunt.com, I just basically have everything there. And then just anywhere you find podcasts, East Meets West Hunt, social media, just my name, Beau Martonik, and then East Meets West Hunt on there too. So that's just about everywhere you can find me.
And how often do you put out a podcast?
Weekly. So I got
cool.
a weekly show that goes out, and then have a bunch of stuff on YouTube that is surrounding scouting mountain whitetails, have some live events that I put on, some different things on that front as well.
Awesome, man. Well, Beau, nice to get to finally sit down and visit with you. Like I said, I think we're a lot alike in where we come from and where we like to go each fall. So hopefully, did you tell us where you're going this year?
Yeah,
Oh,
Montana. Yeah,
That's right.
so I'll go out for elk, and then I'm probably gonna go back out in November with the deer since I got the combo tag. My brother lives in Montana, so I'm trying to
nice.
utilize him being out there. I was just out there for bear. I just got back last week, and I killed my first black bear.
Awesome.
So on a mountain hunt there. But yeah, I'm spending all this year in Montana whenever I can. So
I went on a black bear hunt in Montana in the mountains, just spot and stock, and saw more grizzlies than I did black bear.
really,
So I didn't end up. I was only a 4-day. It was a very quick trip. It was like 4 days, and yeah, never had an opportunity. We never even glassed up. We saw some black bear, but not one that we were like wanted to make a move on, or was a sow with cubs or whatever. But yeah, I saw a lot of grizzly bears.
Oh, that's crazy. We just saw
Yeah.
one black bear, and it was a big boar that I ended up shooting on day 6. But other than that, it was just a bunch of deer, elk, everything else except for bears.
Yeah. One other thing to mention, because we're talking about, and you've based your podcast, and I guess without really thinking about it, I've done a lot of the same, but on people like us that like to go out west, and how do you logistically make that happen? One cool thing was you can still put in for New Mexico, and then if you have the points in Wyoming, you can apply for it and defer if you draw. So like if I would have drawn New Mexico, I could have still said, no, actually I could have gone back and like said to Wyoming Fish and Game, no, I actually don't want to burn my points, which I didn't even know about until this year. So that was just a little extra piece of information for anybody that is putting in for Western tags. But Beau, hey, good stuff, man. Good luck in Montana. Have a great summer, and I look forward to seeing your adventures on social media.
Yeah. Good luck
Especially
in
at Go
Wyoming
Wild.
too. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Definitely. Look forward to seeing how you do in Wyoming as well.
All right, brother. Take care.
All right, we'll see you.